All right, let's talk about one of the absolute cornerstones of JavaScript, objects. Today we're going to go from the basic blueprint all the way to building some really cool stuff using modern, professional techniques.
So let's start with a problem you probably run into, well, every single day. You've got a user's name, their age, and email address. How do you keep all those related bits of info together instead of having them just float around as separate variables? Well, the answer, as you probably guessed, is the object.
And that's really all an object is at its core. It's a container. The best analogy, honestly, is a digital filing cabinet. Each drawer holds a specific piece of information, which we call a property. And some of those drawers might even have little tools or actions inside, which we call methods. Okay, so let's crack open that filing cabinet and take a look at the most basic blueprint for our data. This is ground zero for objects, the classic object literal. So let's break this down. First up, you've got your properties. These are just simple key-value pairs, like name and its value. Then you have methods, which are just functions that live inside the object. They're actions the object can perform. But what's the glue that holds it all together? It's the this keyword. You see, when our greet method says this.name, it knows to look for the name property on this specific object. It's basically how an object can talk about itself. Now, once you've got that blueprint down, it's time to upgrade your toolbox. JavaScript has given us some awesome modern features that make building objects way cleaner and, honestly, a lot more fun. And here is one of my absolute favorite upgrades, property shorthand. You know how in the old days, if your variable name was the same as your property key, you had to type it out twice? It was so repetitive. Well now, if they match, you just write it once. Bam! Done. It's a small change, but it makes your code so much tidier and more professional. But what if you don't know the name of your property when you're writing the code? What if it needs to be decided on the fly? That's where computed properties are a lifesaver. It's super simple. You just put the name you want into a variable. Then, inside your object, you use square brackets around that variable name. JavaScript sees the brackets and says, aha, I need to use the value of that variable as the key. It's incredibly flexible. So how do these two power tools work together? Beautifully. You can use property shorthand for any key where the variable name already matches. And right next to it, you can use a computed property to dynamically create a key from another variable. You're getting the best of both worlds, concise and incredibly dynamic objects. Okay, so you've built your first object. You've got your digital filing cabinet. But these things aren't set in stone. They're meant to be changed. So let's talk about renovations, how to add new properties, update existing ones, and clear out the stuff you don't need anymore. And honestly, managing properties is about as easy as it gets. To add a new property, you just assign a value to it. To update an existing one, you do the exact same thing. And if you want to get rid of one completely, you just put the delete keyword in front of it. It's that straightforward. All right, you've built your object, you've organized it, but now you need to see what's actually inside, right? To do that, JavaScript gives us a set of master keys. These are three super powerful methods that live on the object constructor itself. Our first master key is Object.keys. This is your go-to when you only care about the names of the properties, the keys. You just pass your object into it and boom, you get back a nice, clean array with just the keys. The second key is the perfect partner to the first, Object.values. As you can probably guess, this one does the opposite. It ignores all the keys and gives you an array with just the values, the actual data you've stored in the object. And finally, we have the most powerful key on the ring, Object.entries. This one gives you everything. It returns an array, but each item in that array is another little array that contains both the key and the value together as a pair. This is an absolute game changer when you need to loop over an object, because you get both pieces of information in one go. Okay, you've seen the blueprint, you've got the modern tools, and you have the master keys. Now it's time to put it all together and do the final build. Let's put these new skills to the test with a quick challenge. So here's the task. First, create a book object. It needs a title, an author, and a describe method that returns a little string about the book. Next, I want you to add a published year property, but you have to do it dynamically using a variable. And finally, use Object.entries to log all of its key value pairs. Seriously, pause here and give it a try. The best way to make this stuff stick is to actually do it.
Okay, ready to see the solution? Let's walk through it. For that describe method, the key was using this to grab the object's own title and author. For step 2, the answer was a computed property, right? Using a variable in those square brackets to add the published year. And last, we just loop over the result of Object.entries to print everything out. If you got this, you are in fantastic shape.
So let's wrap up with the big takeaways. Remember, objects are your digital filing cabinets for related data. Property shorthand and computed properties are your friends. They make creating objects so much easier. When you need to inspect what's inside, your master keys are Object.keys, values, and entries. And this is the magic word an object uses to refer to itself. So you can build objects from scratch, you can remodel them, and you can inspect everything inside. But what about pulling them apart? How do you reach into an object and pull out just the pieces you need with, say, surgical precision? Well, that's a fantastic question, and it's exactly what we'll cover next time when we talk about destructuring. See you then!